Actual stream started up there, and I'm gonna actual stream started up there, and I'm gonna. Whoop. Hey, feedback. That's always lovely. Okay, stream is apparently on, even though it's kind of not showing anything at the moment. Is why I start up Diablo, which I haven't started up in. How long has it been now? Gosh, I was actually playing the other day. Only a tiny bit. There is my sound. Actually, now's a good chance for me to check sound levels while we're at it.
I'm tired of them pussyfooting around. They need to tell me what they're doing.
Now's a good chance for me to check sound levels while we're at it.
Tell me what you're doing.
Huh.
Oh my god, I died again.
It was not my fault this time.
It's Flicker Strike, guys.
Yeah, okay. I got you a portal in here this time, so just don't come yet, because it's kind of deadly.
I'm coming.
You guys in your Path of Exile.
Look, I haven't been playing. I stopped for like a week or two, and then I saw the event was this weekend, so I was definitely going to do that. And then Archer got me to play yesterday, started a new character, so we're doing that.
Yeah, it's all my fault.
Alright. Hey, my food finally finished. Of course, right in time, as I announced that I'm going to start this stream now, is when my food finishes. Hold on. Ah, that looks lovely. Haha! So yes, it's good to be back on the line, and of course on the stream, with you gentlemen again. It has been a while since I think we've all really just sat and either talked or tried to play together.
It's been a while.
So yeah, so tonight's topic of discussion, as I've put it up on the stream, is Diablo 3 patch 1.0.4. And as I was telling Snook, apparently Sixon, who's a very prominent voice in the Diablo community, is talking about it on his stream right now. So, yeah, I probably won't pull anyone away from that, because, you know, Sixon's been doing this for a long time. But hey, I wanted to at least put this up, and if I can figure it out, since I haven't messed with it, I can probably try and get this on YouTube at some point, in case the discussion turns into anything interesting here. So, yeah. Snook has apparently read the changes that are happening to 104. How about you, Archer?
I have not. It's on my to-do list, though.
Oh, that's not good.
They've murdered invulnerable minions, or going to murder invulnerable minions.
Yes, yes. I don't have a Hallelujah soundtrack that I can play right now regarding that. I would if I could. Hallelujah. Yes, how do you feel about that, Archer? No more invulnerable minions.
You know, I have some
He doesn't like it.
deals happening soon. I could go take care of those.
What, he wants invulnerable minions?
Yes, he thought it was challenging, and when I told him about that, he said he thought it was challenging, and they shouldn't have changed, or they shouldn't change it.
Archer? What did he do, go away on us?
I don't know, maybe. I see him in game. Still in the call, yeah. I don't know.
Oh, well, all I can say is that I am overly pleased that they finally released a little bit of information about this patch. It has been a very dry spell as far as information is concerned. We've known about this patch for some time now. No information has been coming out of Blizzard. And then finally we get this preview, which is quite honestly only the tip of the iceberg, let's face it. What they gave us was only a little sampling, an hors d'oeuvre, if you will. They are getting our palates wet for the main announcements. Yes, and who can blame them? Looks like there's going to be a lot of information. Not only are they talking about the systems in this one, but something I didn't realize they were going to do is apparently they are releasing different blog posts for each individual class due to the extensive changes to each class individually.
Yeah.
That surprised me. I knew they were going to do a blog post for changes, but I didn't think it was going to be for each class separately.
Yeah, they're doing one for each class, then they're doing a separate one other than that for the legendaries.
Yes, and of course the legendary one is the one that is very important and the one that should be done by itself, as that is one that I'm sure they have lots of information, lovely information to give us.
Now, I know you like trying different things. How do you feel? Do you think, I mean, I'm assuming you're probably going to think it's a good thing. I don't know how you take it as a bad thing. But I like that they're doing the dual-wielding two-handers, adding new set of stronger affixes for them.
Yes, actually. That I do like. So let's, I've got this pulled up here on the other side. One moment here.
By the way, I think you should totally play Path of Exile. I'm like, this is the new Diablo! This is what happens in 1.4.
No. I do have beta access now. I activated it just before this call. So I will probably be doing more with that, but I still have a lot of the beta weekend stuff to release. It's kind of annoying that I got sick again before I was able to put that out. So yeah. 2 weeks, I think, right? 2 weeks to release content that happened, like, over a course of 1 weekend. It's ridiculous.
And I think the beta weekend was 3 weekends ago now.
I don't think it's been 3. Not yet.
I think it has been 3.
No. Don't make me feel even worse about it. Shush, both of you. It's been 2. It's been 2.
Kingsport is a fair city. Why did you leave?
I think you guys are just pulling my chain, and I won't have any of it.
You got caught
So there.
from someone important, didn't
Okay,
you?
fine, we lied. It's been 4.
See? Told you. Look at that. See? Alright, so, yes, I'll just go ahead and talk about it now, since you brought it up. The two-handed thing. I could not be happier about that, actually. This is something that I felt was a failing of the two-handed philosophy. Like, they have all these things that are supposed to make you want to use all sorts of skills, right? All sorts of skills and combinations. And what goes against that but this whole one-hand, two-handed thing? I mean, I thought when I was playing the beta, and what I'm going to probably do is let's turn my headset down a little bit. There you go. So when I was playing the beta, I figured, like, oh, okay, you're going to have all these different options for skills and abilities, and you've got the main hand, offhand thing, and two-handed, which is great. But then I started to realize as I played the main game, it's like, well, if you're not attacking quickly, then you're kind of getting screwed. And then on top of that, the benefits of using a main hand, offhand, or using two weapons just... There was really no reason for having a two-handed weapon, because you could do as much damage with a one-handed weapon as you can do with a two-handed weapon. Right? I mean, we've all seen that, right? The two-handed weapons, their DPS does not eclipse that of one-handed weapons. There are plenty of one-handed weapons out there, at least on the auction house that I've seen, that can do over 1,000 DPS. So
I think the cap, or right around the cap for one-handed is like 13 or 14, and the cap for two-handed seems to be like 16. But when you can dual wield and you get the attack speed bonus and stuff, like...
Yeah. Well, exactly, and that's kind of the problem, too, is that slow weapons are punishing, because if you're a ranged character, you want to be moving quickly. You want to constantly be moving, you want to avoid getting hit, so therefore, the slow attack speed, the problem with slow attack speeds with ranged characters is, you know, if the attack speed slows your attack animation in any way, you don't want to use it.
Yeah.
And I cite, for example, Witch Doctors on that one, because Witch Doctors have a very nasty habit of stopping before they attack. Whereas, for example, I'm kind of meandering around on my Demon Hunter right now, but my Demon Hunter can pretty much fire and then move, right? It's a slow attack speed, but I don't worry about it because when I click, I fire instantly. But the Witch Doctor has this unique issue where they, for whatever reason,
My hatred is too low.
have to stop, cast something, and then they can
I
move.
feel better now.
Which, to be honest, I'm going to be quite honest with you about, and even though this is going to be about, this is mostly about Diablo, I bring this into Path of Exile as well, because that was kind of one of my issues with Path of Exile as I was playing it, at least on my Witch.
Sometimes I wish that when we've met, you'd taken
I'm sitting there and I'm casting a fireball, right? And I have to wait for the casting animation and I can move. It made it very hard to dodge anything.
You know that it won't end that way, right?
Right.
It's especially made the very first boss difficult for me. Not the very first, sorry, the Act 1 in boss. You guys haven't seen that yet. That's a video that I had to compile together. In fact, that took some editing to do, actually. Yes. But, yeah, I mean, there may be a slightly higher cap to two-handed weapons in Diablo 3. But it is not enough to offset the benefits of using one-handed weaponry.
Using one-handed weaponry like with a shield or something like that.
Right, because if you're using a shield, you have more defenses. If you're using two weapons, then you're attacking quite quickly and gaining resources. And that's the other thing. The whole reason why two-handed weapons started failing was you gain so much more resources by dual wielding or using a single one-handed weapon. Because you attack, the more you attack, the more resources you get, the more abilities you can use, so on and so forth. About the only class that seems to work well with two-handed weapons is the Demon Hunter, because they get quivers that increase attack speed.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are serious flaws in the design. I mean, when I was playing my Barbarian, I went through a good portion of the game before Inferno with a two-hander, and I enjoyed it, because it was very high damage, cleaving through enemies at the time. But once I got towards Inferno, I started to realize these slow attacks are bad. I need to hit the enemy and move, you know, and as a melee that kind of sucks, because having to move out of the way is not always, you know, it doesn't quite feel right. When you're playing a melee class, it's supposed to be in there in the thick of the action. But, you know, putting that aside, let's assume that, because even then, even if you have, if you're not having to run around too much, a good player will still move out of damage sources that he needs to avoid, right? So you're still going to do a hit and move as a melee. It's just I think it's to an excess in Diablo 3 right now. If you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the problem with attacking slowly then comes with you don't get that chance to move. You know, you're taking that big, hard swing, and then you get to move. And it's the thing is that big, hard swing, you know, it's not really that big of a deal when single-handed weapons can match it. Really, you know, why put yourself through that? So yeah, these new affixes that they're adding in, I honestly think this is something they should have done before, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's something they did in World of Warcraft, and I'm kind of surprised that they didn't think of it sooner. I mean, there are, and they added that, I think, in Wrath of the Lich King, where two-handed weaponry would have separate enchants on them to make them viable with the fast weapons. So I am looking forward to that. I honestly, I kind of would like to see two-handed weapons maybe get a slight boost in the form of attack speed, but you know, hey, that's not completely separate
they need to
topic.
do something. I mean, if they're not gonna do like attack speed with them, they just need to make them hit harder or do something like.
Right, and let's face it, stronger affixes will do that. So, for example, the base attack of the weapon does not have to go up. It really doesn't, because if with a strong affix, what makes the one-handed weapons as strong as they are? It's the additional of elemental damage plus attack damage, or attack speed. So if you can get a two-handed weapon that can get, say, twice the amount of elemental damage of a one-handed weapon, then it's automatically going to start trumping a single-handed weapon in the terms of damage per attack. Which is great. It's where it should be. A two-handed weapon should hit significantly harder than a one-handed weapon. The trade-off, speed. You are doing one massive big hit, trading off speed. And I don't feel that it's there. And I'm hoping that they will tell us what changes they made. Maybe with the maybe once they release the legendary changes, they'll kind of tell us what kind of affixes they've added and changed.
Sweet revenge.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be kind of cool. Looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to the fact that legendaries are going to be useful.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I think there's going to be some pretty neat procs. That's what I'm looking forward to. Honestly, I don't care if legendaries are not the strongest hitting items in the game. I want them to be interesting. I want to pick up a legendary and use it because it lets me do something that I can't do with any other normal item. Seriously, that would make me use a legendary. It could be half the power of the weapon I'm currently using, but if it's got this really cool proc that I think would help me out, I'll use it.
Now, you briefly mentioned Path of Exile. That's one thing I like about Path of Exile. Their unique system, their legendaries, a lot of them have very unique things that nothing else can do. Because, like, we found a bow that just shoots an extra arrow. So it shoots 2 arrows at all times. And then I found items that, like, there's like a sword that can make it where you can't be frozen. And then there's like another one that makes it where you can't be burned. And then there's one that's very goofy. It's like this belt that makes your character size 10% bigger.
Okay.
I don't understand that, but yeah.
Isn't that kind of a penalty, though? Doesn't that make you easier to hit in maybe PvP or something?
I guess, but it's just, I mean, it's unique stuff, dude, and I like that.
Yeah.
I like that it's...
Yeah. Even something, yeah, you know what, honestly, even something cosmetic like that would be appreciated. Of course, cosmetics is not an acceptable trade-off for power. So, and that's kind of why the legendaries fail right now in D3, is because they are cosmetic, really. You have this really cool weapon that looks like no other weapon, but hey, it doesn't do much. Yes, I don't think anybody quite liked that idea. So yeah, this system really, I think that's going to be a shot in the arm. I really wasn't expecting them to address the two-handed weapon situation, and I'm really glad that they are, because it has been an issue and it has been imbalanced. I mean, if I want to run up and just bash someone with the giant two-handed axe of cleave your skull, I want it to sufficiently feel like I've cleaved his skull. I don't want it to feel like I just scratched his helmet.
And another thing, talking about the items upgrades, I really like the whole thing that they're trying to make items drops good, and the weapon drops of level 61 to 62 will be able to roll up towards the top of the level 3 ones now. So that means your level 61 to 62 weapons, because like it feels useless when you find a 61 or 62 weapon. If it's not 63, even if it's 63, it's probably going to be horrible. But 61 to 62, there's just no chance of the weapon being good right now, unless you're extremely lucky.
Compared to a 63, yes.
Yeah. So the fact that they're changing that, where that hopefully, you know, if they change it right, then that their damage will be up there with that. So I like that a lot too.
All right.
It's very disappointing when you work and you kill some elite packs and you get some crappy 61 sword and it's like,
right,
just 200 DPS. Like,
exactly. Yeah. That was something that I like to see, because it's going to make some items more viable. Lower level items. Right, it makes lower level items more viable as well, and makes it so that you don't have as much guesswork, because you know the way they described it right now is there's a lot of guesswork involved in wondering is a weapon going to be good. You know, you can't really tell until you unwrap the present, as it were, and they want to try and make it so that you have a better idea if it's going to be good or not. Simply because right now a lot of the damage is tied so much into the elemental damage and plus bonus damage. So not sure exactly how they're changing that, but yeah, I mean the fact that the 61 to 63 weapons have all have equal chance of getting to that high-end mark, I mean, it's going to be higher, obviously, with item level 63, but you still have a chance.
But I feel like it's a win because, like, you want like your 1,000 DPS weapons from your 63s. But I feel like it's still a win if all they do in this patch, if they do where like you can find 61, 62s like pretty commonly with like 700-800 DPS. Because right now, if you go farm at level 60 with stacks and everything, you find 61, 62 weapons. Chances are, you know, maybe 10% of them will be above 500 DPS. And that's just terrible because in game you cannot use them weapons at all. Like, doesn't matter what else rolls on it, just such low DPS.
Yeah. Well, let me structure this a tiny bit, because what I want to do is let's actually go down the list here and see what they talk about and what can we talk about here. So the first part is co-op changes, removing the averaging of magic find in a group and lowering the health multiplier of monsters in a group. Alright. Interesting changes there. The magic find averaging kind of surprised me a little bit since they went to great lengths to put that in the first place.
Yeah.
How do I feel about that? I'm slightly saddened by that. I think simply because I think it was a great system for going into a public game, and if somebody was sitting there doing hardly any damage and they were pretty much just soaking things up for their magic find, it let those players that were doing most of the grunt work get something out of it. Yeah. People talk about it's like, well, I put great lengths into getting all that gear to getting my magic find, but okay, I understand that, but you are technically holding your group back, and you're basically letting them do all the heavy lifting. So shouldn't they also get something? I kind of liked that system. Now, it also allowed you to decide, like, because in some groups what they would do in Diablo 2 is you'd have someone with a whole bunch of magic find, and they had to be the one to get the last hit. So everybody would do, they'd put out everything that they could, and then they'd wait for the guy with the magic find to get the last hit on them, to get the huge drops, right? Now you don't have to worry about that because everybody gets their own loot. But it's one of those systems now where they still get some of the better items by not putting out as much. Now, here's the thing. Originally, I thought, okay, in groups, this would be great because instead of having that one person with all this magic find, everybody could have a little bit of magic find and they'd all benefit from it. Or even if they did have the one guy with a whole bunch of magic find, everybody else's drops would be good, right? So instead of having to pick it up and distribute it. But there's the thing, is if you're playing with friends, you can still pick up items and distribute it amongst your friends. So, it's like, hey, I've got 800% magic find. I just found, 10 great items, and you guys might like them, so here you are. That's great. The downfall, of course, is the public games now suffer. So if you've got someone with high magic find and they're not feeling generous, they might just take everything, sell it, vendor, whatever, and say, heck to you, this is my stuff, this is my money. But I suppose it's not a big deal. A lot of people really want to go back to the old system, and that's fine. I haven't really played public games, so I really can't say I have a deep-seated emotional attachment to it one way or the other. I play with friends, I play with you guys. So
I think that news makes Don the happiest of us all, because now when we join up with a game with him, we do not bring his magic find down.
Indeed.
So true.
Indeed. So, the change of averaging on health. Not entirely surprised by this, considering the changes they made recently to reduce the damage monsters were doing per player.
So this is a decrease, because I didn't know what it was before. I just thought they were changing it to a flat increase for the difficult, like the different difficulties of multiplayer. I didn't know this was actually an increase or buff or what.
Don says that he doesn't care if we were taking down his magic find, by the way. He's a team player.
I never doubted this for a moment.
So, yeah, the change in health. Yeah, this is actually a nerf to the monster health. This new system. In Inferno mode, I think it was 110% health a monster would gain per player. A huge amount of health. In normal mode, it was 75%. So what they've done is they basically made it now so that no matter what difficulty mode you're playing, they're going to get the normal mode multiplier, which is just 75% more health per player. And there's no longer a damage increase per player. So they're... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, so basically what they're doing here, and I think this is a good move, is they're trying to make it so that co-op feels better, feels more natural, and that you're not punished for playing co-op, you know, because the whole thing with damage increasing was punishing, especially to melee characters. You would take damage, far more damage, you couldn't survive through it, and people wanted to play by themselves because of it. I had that. I felt like that when I was on my Barbarian. I had times where I was like, you know what, I don't want to play with groups anymore. I just want to play by myself because every time I play in a group I get one shot. So they changed that, that's good. Now they're doing it to the health. I'm not sure the health needed it, to be honest.
Not enough hatred.
Now, so this is a straight up nerf, right? So then there's the other part where they're nerfing, it's not in the part we're discussing yet, but you know, I'm going to bring it up because it ties in here. They are going to nerf the health of elites by, I think, roughly 25%.
I don't think they say it, because they say they're increasing the health of normal monsters and lowering the health of champions and rares to shrink the gap between them.
Yeah, so they're lowering the health of elites. So, you know, okay, yeah, that's a straight up nerf as well. So they're making the game easier in those regards. But then again, you just brought up the point. Of normal monsters' health is going to go up by roughly 5 to 10%. So even though they're nerfing the health gain per player, they are increasing the overall health. Now, it's still probably lower than what it was previously, but there is kind of a synergy effect that's going to happen there that's going to make it a little, not as bad as some people might expect, but it's still going to be a little bit easier. But they really want, and I kind of like that idea of changing up the gap between a regular monster and a elite of some sort, you know, champion or whatever you have. Champion or rare. Because as of right now, as they said, is the difference between the two is so high, you can sit there and you can clear out, and I've noticed this, I've had this happen, I could clear out entire areas of normal monsters and then the elite pack just stomps all over me. And so then you start feeling like, okay, if you can take out the normal enemies in an area, shouldn't you be able to at least put up a decent fight against the elite pack, right? You would think that. That would be the natural flow. You know, let's just say you don't know anything about Diablo at all. If you were a new player, and you were doing well in an area, killing a whole bunch of normal enemies, would you not expect that if you can do well in a spot, that you would expect a difficulty spike for finding a rare or elite, whatever, but you wouldn't expect it to pretty much stomp you in one shot or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So as of right now, it's just the difference is too high. So I agree with them on that. As far as the direction they're doing it in, I'm not entirely sure I agree because yes, it's going to make things a little bit easier. How much easier, we don't really know because they haven't given exact numbers, and of course percentages, well, percentages in this game aren't always what they seem sometimes, I've noticed. When they say they change something by 10%, sometimes you hardly even notice it, sometimes you notice it a great deal. It really depends on what they change and how they change it. So that is something I'm going to probably have to reserve judgment on, but yes, I am slightly concerned that it might be getting a little too easy, although I say that even though I still haven't gotten through Act 3 on my Barbarian. Yeah.
So you're talking about making the game easier. The next two down definitely seem like it's going to make the game easier too.
Yeah, let me get past this here and then we'll go into that as well. So, I don't mind it getting here. I'm probably going to get lynched for this and saying this is I kind of don't mind the game getting a little easier. I really think that Diablo 3 shouldn't be the game that is uber punishing to players. And my reasoning for that is it still has it's an action RPG. It's kind of hard to make a game like this be difficult in the right way. And when I mean the right way, I mean allowing a player to have control over the difficulty curve. As it stands, the difficulty curve is controlled less by a player and more by the items and loot that they have found.
Sweet revenge.
Good difficulty comes in the form of, say, games like Ninja Gaiden. I cite the first one. The second one had some issues, and the third one I haven't played. Or, say, I've heard a lot about Dark Souls. Haven't played it, but I've heard that is a perfect example in what difficulty should be, because it is a brutally hard game, but you get better at it, and as you get better at it, you survive. It's kind of hard to do that in Diablo, because what are you doing? You're playing a game with the most simple interface you can possibly imagine. Point and click. Point, click, 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 click is actually more accurate. It should be challenging in a way. It should not be super easy, but at the same time, I don't expect this game to be the game that's going to push me to the depths of my tactics and playing capabilities. So, I don't mind if it's not too hard. As a matter of fact, I think back of all the times I played Diablo 2, and what I played it for back then, Diablo 2 wasn't exactly a super difficult game. A lot of people like to say it was, but the truth is, a lot of the difficulty in Diablo 2 is just like Diablo 3, gear. In fact, I hated playing melee characters in Diablo 2 because unless you geared a certain way, you were missing a lot. Like, you had to have a lot of, I think it was attack rating in Diablo 2, or you were missing a lot, and then melee characters started sucking at that point. But I played Diablo 2 because I just kind of liked roaming around killing monsters, and, you know, every now and then, yeah, I would die. Because it wasn't easy. But then again, it wasn't super brutally hard. I mean, once you got to a certain level, the challenge was pretty much gone. And that level wasn't 99. You started making fun of Diablo 2 way before level 99. I never hit level 99. I had no desire to. But I still played it every now and then, without worrying about hitting 99. I just played it to play it. But I like playing these kind of games like Diablo, Torchlight, PoE. I wanna see what different types of abilities and combinations that I can bring to bear against a monster, and try and make those combinations be useful, or, you know, even just cool and flashy. You know, like, what can I do to kill this monster in a spectacular way without dying? You know, it's kind of the reason why I play, say, games like Devil May Cry. I like killing things in a flashy manner. And that's part of it. I still think the game could be difficult, but I don't think it needs to absolutely 100% punish a player just because he doesn't happen to have the right type of gear. Like, I should not have to be forced to go and grind 50 hours to get the next piece of gear. I'm using hyperbole here, of course. You know, I'm over-exaggerating, but that's the point, right? You know, you want, when you're thinking about a system like this, what are the extreme measures that you have to take?
I'm fine. I mean, I've never played a game like this. Like Diablo before I played Diablo, so like having to farm some to get gear is fine. But I definitely wouldn't want to do it for like I remember you hitting such a wall with your barbarian that you would you just days and days of farming and not finding anything to help you progress. Like, that would be very disappointing.
Right, and I could have gone and found more on the auction house. It's just it wasn't something I wanted to do. I wanted the experience of finding my stuff and enjoying it. Oops, running into a little lag there. Hopefully I didn't trip up the stream too much. Yeah, I like that feeling of finding the gear, and that's why I kept playing Diablo 2. You know, it was like, you know what, I had beaten the game multiple times. I beaten Diablo. Really, what did I have to play the game for other than finding stuff that was cool? And that was part of it, you know. I would just... Part of the what I enjoyed about that game was finding new items, like even lower level items that I could make a new character and maybe run around with this super powerful item that I found as a lobby. You know?
Yeah.
It was kind of neat.
I'd say that's what's going to kind of bring me back. I haven't been playing Diablo lately, but when this patch hits, I'm definitely going to be playing because I'm going to want to test out whatever abilities they change for my main character, the Witch Doctor. But I also want to try to find a cool legendary that has a cool something and try it out and like.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. If the legendary procs are cool enough, it will make me want to find them. Right now, the item hunt, and I think this is part of the problem, and a lot of people like to talk about the end game of Diablo. There really is no end game in Diablo, and there really wasn't much of an end game in Diablo 2 until they patched one in. Much later. People need to understand that. The end game that a lot of people loved about Diablo, like the Ubers and the Tristrams and whatnot, that wasn't added until much later, much after the first expansion pack. The game, Diablo 2, at its base, was not very big, did not have a lot to offer, especially once you've beaten it. All these runes and whatnot, that was Lord of Destruction, that was the expansion. But that was the thing, is some of the items were pretty neat. It had some neat different affixes, like the ability to proc certain items. That was one of the main reasons why people wanted to do those Tristrams and Uber runs, because you got a talisman that lets you perform the ability that Diablo has, his Firestorm. You know, of course, once you got that, you pretty much had beaten Diablo 2. What else was there to find? Because you had just beaten the most powerful monsters and gotten the most awesome item ever.
Yeah.
So
That takes me back.
I never got one. I never did any of those Uber runs and whatnot. I came in when they implemented it, but well, I didn't start playing the game with it. But I mean, I came back, played it again when they implemented it, and I saw all these things. So many Stones of Jordan had been returned, and I was like, "What is all this?" I never did it. Part of the reason why was because I lost all my characters because I hadn't played in so long. That was something that kind of sucked in D2.
You lost your characters, you didn't play?
Yeah, 6 months or 3 months or...
Yeah, it had a lockout system where when you first created a character, you had to spend like 10 hours on him in order to make him semi-permanent. And then after that, you had to log into the character once every, I think, 30 to 60 days. But as long as you logged in on him once, he would stay alive. One moment, please.
That's weird.
Leah's a bit of a wreck.
Very strange.
Do you think that soul
That's how it was.
stone's getting to her?
It is a different.
They were forcing you to play the game.
Well, at least she doesn't.
Why are you gonna lose all your stuff?
They're forcing you to play at least a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, at least log on, and then make like, oh, I'll play since I'm logged on.
And I think a lot of that had to do with making so many mule accounts to hold all your items and stuff too.
Yeah. There were a lot of mule characters because of that. Because there was, well, for one, there was no shared stash. For two, the inventory was a lot smaller because you had to play inventory Tetris. Alright, so talking about making things easier, looking at the next item on the list, the nerfing of fire chains, which I just ran into a pack with fire chains. Speak of the devil. Fire chains and shielding. I think this was kind of needed. Fire chains, I saw some people saying, well, fire chains was fine as is. I'm like, well, not if you were melee, it wasn't. Simply because it did inconsistent damage, I noticed. Fire chains could either not do much or do way too much. Because I had enemies with fire chains surround me and I watched my health drop like a stone. I like that. The shielding, I think is good too, because I think the shield might be up a little bit too long at times. It makes it very difficult because shielding also prevents you from crowd controlling. So, and of course, everybody's favorite news, the removal of invulnerable minions. I am happy by this. Now, as a barbarian, I didn't have that much of a problem with it. At least with certain packs. Most packs I didn't have a problem with invulnerable minions because it seemed like, at least, with invulnerable minions, you could still hit them and perform effects on them, such as slows, or at least my on-hit for life or whatever when I did revenge, seemed to count them as targets. I just couldn't kill them. But if you got a pack of, say, those giant guys in the end of Act 2, Act 3, where, you know, the big guys with the two clubs, they bang the clubs together, they knock you back.
Yeah.
The big fat guys, big Buddhas. Them with invulnerable minions was, oh my god, no. That was, yeah, certain monster types with invulnerable minions was just really super hard. So, I will not be sad to see that ability go. Just because it... Really, what could you do against that? They were invulnerable, right? You can't... And the worst part is as a ranged, and I think this is why it didn't bother me so much, as a melee I could just keep hitting the main guy. But as a range, they soak up your missiles. So you're kind of trying to fire at a distance, and what happens? Oh, you know, I fired that monster, but his minion got in the way. Great. There really wasn't any great tactics you could bring to bear against them, you know?
And see, I mean, unless they change, which, I mean, it sounds like they're changing a lot, so they could change the abilities I use now. But unless they change, like, I don't see what's really going to be a problem, because that was, like, the #1 thing that I had a problem with my Witch Doctor build, was invulnerable minions. So, I'm kind of glad that this is good, but... Just because it makes me more...
Oh, yeah, Don says the frogs. Yeah, the fast leapers. Yeah, those guys were horrible.
Ugh.
Because you could not... I mean, what could you do against them, right? They were fast, they chased you down. At least with some minions, you could run faster than some of them could follow, but... Ooh. Yeah, I'm definitely not sad to see that one go. That... You know, even if they would replace it with something like, maybe not invulnerable minions, but maybe minions that took slightly less damage or something, I don't know. Anything seems like it would have been better than making them completely invulnerable.
I always wonder what happened if they did the opposite, where the main guy was invulnerable and you had to kill the minions first.
See, now that's kind of interesting, actually. That's a neat idea, because I've seen games that do something like that. Not necessarily an action RPG, but I have seen that kind of thing where you have to take out the followers before you can take out the main guy. And that would be neat if done right.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But it doesn't look like they're going to be adding any new ones in. It looks like they're mostly taking out... Of course, there is an expansion down the road, so maybe. Who knows? Oh, let's go on. What are we doing? Weapons Master. That's one we've already talked about. Stronger affixes for two-handed weapons. One thing that we glossed over, though, on that, and that they did talk about in the whole two-handed weapons section, is the changing of wordings to skills that say do damage for X number of seconds. Because those are very hard to interpret. The damage over X seconds, completely understandable. You know, if it says it does 10% weapon damage over 5 seconds, alright, I understand that. You know, but when it says does 10% damage for 5 seconds, it's like, okay, is that 10% damage every second for 5 seconds? Every half a second? Every, you know, what? What kind of number are we looking at here? So they're going to make that easier to understand. And with the buff to two-handed weapons, they're expecting this to improve those skills for two-handed weapons, which you might like, Snook, because that affects a lot of Witch Doctor skills. A lot of Witch Doctor skills have that damage for seconds thing, such as Haunt.
Yeah.
All right, so we could be seeing a resurgence of skills just with that people use because the wording is easier to understand, and people might actually try using it. So, I mean, and that's not even a change that they're intentionally making. You know, like, they're not necessarily buffing those, per se. But they're going to make it easy to understand, so, hey, maybe people will use it. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Let's go. Legendaries, they haven't really talked about that yet. That's going to be in a future update from Blizzard. Let's see here. Stay classy. Metric ton of class changes. So let's kind of talk about, since we can't really talk about the classes themselves, we can at least talk about some of the changes that they're doing to classes. Pardon me one moment.
I'm gonna die.
Nah, it's just I'm trying to eat at the same time. It's kind of poorly timed, this whole cast, really.
Oh, no, oh, well, I know. I said no, I'm gonna die because...
Oh, you're gonna die. Oh, well, you I don't care about.
Yeah, we're playing paths. We're doing that cutthroat thing. If you die, you lose a lot of experience and lose all your gear. So we have like a mob of guys after this.
So, first thing they talk about, does the skill have any control or readability issues? So, that make it, say, less satisfying to use, and if so, polish it. And specifically, they talk about rend. I like this because rend is a skill that I don't like. Great! We can talk about rend! Awesome! Okay, so, yeah, what's my beef with rend? Well, one of the things they mention is it's kind of hard to tell when a monster has rend on it. And I agree with that. It is difficult to tell if a monster has rend on it. That wasn't necessarily the only issue I had with it, but it was one of them. I think it just didn't feel quite right. Wasn't visceral enough, I guess, for me. So you have that. But, yeah, rend. It just had issues. And so basically what they're looking at is skills that have usability issues, anything that makes it seem like this might not be a great skill. So what kind of skills might there be? Actually, as I was watching Sixen streams, they were specifically talking about strafe for demon hunters. And I think that's a good example, because strafe is an ability for demon hunters that's a lot like whirlwind for barbarians. It's just kind of a ranged equivalent. You spin around, you attack everything in range, but you lose movement speed. And a lot of demon hunters don't like that, because if you lose movement speed, you're going to get hit. Which means a rune that makes you get the movement speed back tends to trump others. Oh wow, I've been disconnected from the server. That's not good. My stream seems to be just fine. So apparently BattleNet is having some issues.
What?
BattleNet having issues? What? Crazy.
Yeah, there goes my progress, bastards.
They will run when they see us.
Oh dear. Yeah, it started me back at these depths. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, something like strafe. Yeah, okay, so like slowing down, yeah, skills like that kind of change up your movement and whatnot, they either need to be more clear or more accessible, or have something that makes it worth using. And so this, is not just skills in general, but runes. I mean, you think about it, there are some runes out there that are probably underutilized just because the rune does something or changes a skill, or maybe it's just worded in a wrong way that make people think it's not that great. And unless you go out of your way to try it, like, I do, I pretty much go out of my way to try almost every skill I get just to make sure it works in the way I think it does.
My hatred is too low.
So that's a great idea, to change those. And let's move through here. Ooh, wow, I just ran through an arcane beam. That was pretty fun. Don't you guys miss Arcane while you're playing Path of Exile? Come on. I know you guys want to have that Arcane affix in Path of Exile. In fact, I think I'll recommend it to the devs.
I like vulnerable mutants on this game because they don't seem that hurt.
Yeah.
So let me see, the next one is, does it have a similar role as another skill? Then it should be buffed to be competitive. And that's again where they talk about runes, where if you buff one rune, you have to make sure that you don't make that rune the go-to rune that everybody uses, or that it changes up the balance or variable builds. This is the tricky business of trying to balance all of these skills and runes. If they make something too good, then all the other viable builds that are already out there start becoming less viable or less used or useless, depending. So honestly, I don't envy them for having to do these class changes because it's a ton of work, really. Figuring out what skills underperform and how can you bring them up without bringing everything else down. And what I like, though, is that they're talking about buffing skills rather than nerfing them.
Yeah.
Nerfs suck for everybody. Why do you want to feel less powerful? You don't.
Yeah, it's kind of nice too that, I mean, because if you think about it from that standpoint, like, it's nice that they're not going to nerf the good spells, they're going to make the bad spells better, so then you know what I'm saying, you feel like you have more options and stuff in this way.
Exactly, and that's something that's sorely lacking right now. Certain skills just do not feel like they're there yet. And certain runes are just too good. I mean, now, you could argue it with some things like, I could say, Revenge for the Barbarian. There are several people that like different Revenge runes, but I think a good majority of people like the one that double the proc rate. Some do like the one that increases the healing, but the truth of the matter is a lot of the other runes are going by the wayside. You know, because you've got two really good rune choices there, and the others really don't seem to offer as much. So, and that goes into the next section. That's a good segue in the next section. Does a skill have a dominant rune? Can they buff the unused runes? So this is the tricky part. If they want to buff, they have to be very careful. Simply because buffing, while a great idea because you don't usually want to nerf, you could start making things too powerful. So we're starting to run into this thing where, right, they're talking about buffing skills, but they're also talking about reducing monster health pools. So if they buff skills too much, all of a sudden all the work they'd have into making the game challenging and fun at the same time starts to go out the window, right? Very tricky. So they may have to make some nerfs in order to bring down some of the dominant runes. May. Hopefully they don't have to. Hopefully they'll come up with a way to buff everything without making things too easy and without nerfing things to make everybody feel bad about using that ability. So this one is the one I liked, and I'm looking forward to this the most. Resource spenders. They are talking about how resource spenders do not adequately do the damage compared to their resource cost. I fully agree with this. I fully agree with this. They mention Wave of Light, and I think that's a good one. That's a resource they change in the beta. If you remember in the beta, Wave of Light costs like 100 spirit or something like that. And it didn't really do a ton of damage. Well, they brought it down to like what, 75, but it still doesn't do a ton of damage. And it's a huge chunk of spirit. 75%, you know, of your spirit is out of 150.
Yeah.
That's a big choice you have to make, because that means that you're just going to spend a whole bunch of spirit that you could be using on something else. Maybe a defensive ability. Maybe another offensive ability that would be more useful.
Yeah. And see, and that's something too, like the zombie charger. I remember looking at the zombie charger ability for the Witch Doctor, and I wanted to try out the one that sends out a bunch of zombies in all directions, and the pylon, because the zombie in all directions seemed like it did a good amount of damage, and it sent them out in different directions. And the pylon seemed very good because it was a straight line, very powerful attack. Like, I think the damage is like 700 something% or something. but and I wasn't really interested in zombie bears at all. But then I play with it, and zombie bears like the only thing that ever gets used because of two flawed problems with the other ones. One being the zombies, when you run out from everywhere, are very inconsistent of where they run to, and they can all bunch up together and like just not go everywhere. And then the wall just takes forever to happen. Like, I feel like I can make a sandwich in the time it takes for a zombie wall to like build itself up to fall over. It's like,
hey, that's a good idea. Make me a sandwich.
My
it's just
hatred
like
is too low.
it just takes forever.
Yeah.
For
And that's something that's something they might address. I mean, they might not increase the damage, but they might make it so that it falls faster, or make it so that it's more usable. Because that's the whole thing about this. Buffs to skills doesn't always mean damage.
No, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. I hope if they just fix them problems, if they made the zombie skill where you run out from everywhere, if they made them go out like north, south, east, west, southwest, like made them go out in certain lines every time, and made the other ability where it just built faster to fall over, then both of them abilities I would try them again. I mean, they both do good damage. I don't need damage increases on them. I need the core mechanics to be fixed. I need the one to build faster. I need the other ones. I need to kind of know where my zombies are going.
Right. Completely agree. I fully 100% agree on that one. And yeah, that's one of those accessibility changes that they're talking about. And I think if anyone can do it, it'll be Blizzard. To be honest, they usually are pretty good about, once they've gotten feedback on skills and abilities, that they listen to that. But they don't like. One thing that they do well is that they don't just take what everybody says should be done to it and do it. They take what everybody says should be done to it, evaluate it, and say, hey, is this really a good idea? Is there something else we could do that might work just as well? So they take everybody's feedback, and they come up with ideas of their own, and they come up with these solutions that sometimes can be quite surprising. So yeah, my big thing on the spenders part that I fully agree with, I noticed a lot with my Barbarian. I don't know if you noticed, when I was playing my Barbarian later on, I started removing Fury spenders from my Barbarian's builds. Simply because a lot of the defensive abilities that I had,
Well, there's you.
a lot of the defensive abilities and other utility abilities that I had gave me Fury. And since John Alexander's asking here in the chat, yes, they are removing the invulnerable minions. This is something we just actually got past talking about, which we believe is a wonderful boon, honestly. Unless Don wants to, I think Don wanted them back. I think Don said he wanted invulnerable minions. Or maybe it was Archer. I think Archer's like, oh, I love invulnerable minions. I wish I could have more of them. Yes.
I think they should. I think they should get rid of vulnerable minions and do what he's talking about, where the main guy's invulnerable and you have to get all the little guys.
That would be a neat fix. I think if I don't think it's something they're going to add to the main game, but if it's something they could consider for an expansion.
It's a little twist on it.
And indeed, and I think that more interesting monster abilities like that would be very welcome in this game.
Yes, more monster abilities. I would actually like that. Like, I think they should definitely look into that when they do an expansion of increasing the number of monster affixes, because it definitely gets stale after a little while. But like, if they added like an expansion, if they added 20 more affixes that could be typed on, that's just so many more possibilities. By just adding just 20 more, like, it would feel fresher. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot they could do with an expansion that's not, you know, not even touching on story, and there's a lot they could do story-wise for an expansion, but yeah.
Not ready yet.
Looking forward to whatever they come up with. But this patch first, of course, and then after that's PvP.
I'm ready for my pets to be good.
Oh my goodness, yes. the last teaser that they released as far as Witch Doctor pets, they claimed that they took all the buffs that people had been suggesting and doubled them. If you all remember, this is what they said regarding Inferno mode, where they said they took the difficulty and then doubled it. So, considering how hard Inferno was when it first came out, I can only imagine what kind of buffs they have in mind for Witch Doctor pets. Oh,
I better be able to summon mini Diablos.
No.
Oh, my baby Diablo.
No. I veto this idea. 100% veto denied.
I'd settle for the zombie dogs if they get one shot.
Right. I'll settle for that. I also would settle for infinite zombie.
New rune, invulnerable zombie dog.
Yeah.
Ha!
Yeah, like, and it's not even like on the main zombie dog skill, make it where like you can have unlimited number of them. Just make like the abilities that can proc zombie dogs from certain things, make that where that can proc unlimited numbers of them, and there's not a max for that. Like make the other thing where you can summon 3 and then the rune or passive and make it go to 4, but then like the other stuff that can proc them like Circle of Life and stuff, make it where that doesn't have a limit. You can get unlimited from that. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Because I would do that for fun. I would go around, have a build like that, and I would go around before a boss fight and just kill a bunch of elite stuff and get a whole bunch of dogs and then go in and like bring it on. Have 83 zombie dogs.
Really? You would have that many zombie dogs? It'd be like the old summon mancers from Diablo 2 when you can have like tons of skeletons following you.
Oh my god, it's Lagville.
Yeah, Lagomancers, I believe they were fondly called. No, I don't think that was fondly, actually. As I was saying back about my Barbarian, I was removing my Fury Spenders. Simply because I had all these other abilities I wanted to use, such as Overpower with the damage redirection. I found those to be more useful, and I really didn't have any Fury Spenders that I really liked. I mean, I didn't care for Rend. Seismic Slam was my favorite ability, but while I really loved it, I was trading it out for other abilities that I wanted to use for more defensive capabilities. You know, let me just pull up the Barbarian. Kind of look at his Fury Spenders here and kind of glance at that and see what I had to choose from. Hammer of the Ancients, really small hit area, quite a bit of damage, but I didn't like how small it was. The damage really wasn't that great, especially considering I could get Seismic Slam, which had a wider area, and if I ruined it right, it could do just as much damage. Not only that, but Seismic Slam had a knockback on it on one of its runes, so I really liked it. Rin, I didn't really care for, don't know why. Part of the reason probably was, like we talked about earlier, kind of hard to tell if they have it or not, and there were just other aesthetics issues I think I had with it. And then lastly, you had Whirlwind, which, you know, while I love Whirlwind, using Whirlwind is dangerous. It puts you in a very precarious situation because you're actually there on top of the enemy as they're attacking you. You know, and Whirlwind really doesn't do a lot of damage, to be honest. Over time, when used properly, yes, it could. But it's one of those things, like, if you need to use it quickly, it only does like 110. Was it 110? I'll look at it here real quick. 110, yeah. So if you only had to use it quickly, it didn't really do a lot. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to buffs to spenders of all sorts. I think they could really use that shot on the arm. So yeah, Wave of Light, seeing that getting upgraded, that would be nice. You know, I even look at my Demon Hunter here and some of the things I have to spend my hatred on. You know, Elemental Arrow, while it's really useful and I like it, that's really the only spender I mostly care for. I've got this Spike Trap, which does a lot of damage, but it costs so much hatred comparatively. 371% weapon damage over after 2 seconds, and that's using the long fuse rune. You know, it's 30 hatred out of a resource pool of 125. I put down 3 of those, assuming the lag lets me. That's half of my pool. I don't know, I was just fighting packs with it and fighting GOM with it, and it just felt like it could do more, I guess. So, you know, we'll have to see. Not everything has to do a ton of damage, but if you're going to spend a resource on something, you should feel like you're getting something out of it. I mean, well, let's face it. Let's look at Hungering Arrow, right? I'm looking at it right now. 115% weapon damage, 35% chance to pierce. Compare that to, say, Elemental Arrow, which is 155. I've got a Fury generator that, or a Hatred generator here, that I could spend most of my time using. Of course, thankfully, Demon Hunters have the unique ability if they could get enough Hatred to start using spenders more often. So, I think Demon Hunters might be a bad example for this, but, I mean, honestly, the Barbarian is a great example, because a lot of the spenders for Barbarians feel like they don't give you enough, and I think Monks honestly have the same issue. Again, Sighting Wave of Light. And then there's other abilities that you have as a monk that do you really feel like using it, you know? Do you really feel like you want to use this ability? Does it hit hard enough? Lashing Tail Kick, when I first got it, I hardly ever used it. It did decent damage, it had knockback, but seriously, I could just sit there and punch my enemies to death. Oh.
If you could change, like, is there an ability that you like or want to like for the Barbarian, like, but just there's one main problem with it, like I was talking about with the lines of the zombies or the build time of the pylon? Is there something that you know that you like an ability but want to change one thing about it for the Barbarian?
There's a couple abilities that I would like to see changes to just because I like them, but I don't like them enough to use them. One would be Weapon Throw. I like Weapon Throw, but seriously, it's a spender. It doesn't spend a lot, though. It only costs 10, but it does 100% weapon damage at its base. You know.
What would you change to that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't really have solutions, but I'm saying if there was anything they would change, like as far as spenders go, there'd be that one. As far as a skill that's underutilized, the one that I know they're going to touch on is Ancient Spear. Now, that's not a spender, that's a generator. But they've already acknowledged that Ancient Spear is not a well-used skill. So I would love to see what kind of changes they come up with on that one. Heck, if they made Ancient Spear a Fury spender and made it do some amazing amount of damage or gave it some crazy abilities, that would be pretty cool. But we don't know if they might not make any such drastic changes.
Would you like Weapon Throw if it was a generator?
You know, that would be interesting. Although I think that would kind of defeat the spirit of the Barbarian, you know, since he's that would turn him into a ranged character. Which is essentially what Weapon Throw does, if you rune it right and, you know, build yourself right. But, yeah, I don't think I'd want to make that a generator, to be honest. Maybe if it did more damage, I mean, yeah, that would be nice. I mean, it only costs 10 Fury, but, so in a pool of 100, that gives you 10 throws, right?
At least, yeah.
So, yeah, it doesn't do... I think that is part of it. I think it just doesn't feel like it does enough, even though it's got a very, very small cost to it. It just doesn't quite have the oomph, I suppose. Here's another one I'm just looking at right now, Multi-Shot. This thing costs 40 hatred. It has a huge radius on it, but I don't think the damage is quite there. I mean, 165% weapon damage for 40 hatred. I mean, my Spike Trap costs less hatred and does more damage. Granted, it's an AoE ability, but Spike Trap technically is too, because it does an explosion.
Yeah, and if you get the one that puts all three, better.
Yeah, the all three traps. Yeah, that's hardly any cost to you. So yeah, I mean, just looking at the skills I got leveling up here, I mean, that just kind of gives you an idea of what kind of issues there are.
They better not touch my zombie bears, is all I gotta do. not do a
If
thing
they
to
do, it'll more than likely be a buff. You know that.
I don't think so, 'cause
They're
they're
trying to
talking
buff
about-
stuff more than, you know.
Yeah, but I don't think they will buff it. They might just leave it alone. I hope they leave it alone. But that's,
Probably.
I think, one of the more popular abilities. And they're talking about, changing the ones that's not popular, the ones that's not used. So.
My lightning ball is dead.
Probably.
So let me see. We've kind of stuck on that topic for a bit. What is next? Would buffing a skill increase or decrease build diversity? And that's what we talked about already. Buffing skills comes with a consequence of possibly derailing diversity. If they make something too good, everybody's going to gravitate to it, and then all of a sudden everybody's doing it. Then you have cookie cutters again. But the one thing they talked about specifically in that column was the Witch Doctor pets, because as of right now, there's not as many Witch Doctor builds because a lot of people see the pets as useless, and let's face it, they are. Unless you build a very specific way, and that build that I've seen for pets is usually based around using poison damage to reduce damage that they take. There is that, and then there's, abilities like Sacrifice. I'm just going to come out and say it on Sacrifice. I think that's a horribly designed skill as it is right now. It does quite a bit of damage, but when your pets have such a large cooldown, or your dogs, because it only sacrifices your dogs, you basically put yourself out of having a pet, out of having a resource available to you for a minute. And the damage it does is really not comparable. Granted, it doesn't cost you anything to use that ability. I believe that's a free casting spell, isn't it? No mana?
Which one?
Sacrifice.
I believe it costs mana. I'm pretty sure almost everything for the Witch Doctors costs some amount of
but it's not a lot. I mean, it sacrifices the pet for the damage. I would love to see that ability either given a buff or have something about it changed to make it more useful, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that.
So. Yeah. Alright, well, let's move on here. What else do we have here? That was mostly what they talked about, to be honest. Those are most of the changes in store. We haven't gotten the next. Honestly, I think we're going to get bombarded. The one big thing about this, of course, is that the release date is going to be here at the end of August. So, I mean, we've just got a few weeks. Yeah. And we've got, all the classes have got to be talked about. Legendary changes have to be talked about. Changes to Magic Find have to be talked about. If you remember, they were talking about changing Magic Find in one of their blog posts, asking for community feedback. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of feedback or what kind of a system they come up with based on that feedback. Because they had quite a few changes that they were talking about, some of which were obviously no bueno. Such as resetting your Magic Find when you change gear to 0 for a while. I'd be like, okay, well, that one I don't think was too bad. There was, there were some of them on there that weren't great. And I don't remember all 5 options, but yeah. And I think the changing to Magic Find to being individual based rather than group based is just one of the changes that we can expect to this system. Yeah. It's probably just the gateway to what other changes they're going to make.
Did you see the one thing, the levels of excellent thing?
Yes, it was a post. They saved it on Diablo fans. I'm looking at it right now, the levels of excellence. It was a translation from, where was it? The Portuguese version, where they talked about this levels of excellence and how it's a new system. So I am hoping that was just an accidental leak of information and that it's something really cool that we can look forward to.
Yes. Now, I don't know, obviously, what's going on. I don't know if that could be it or something. But as soon as I saw levels of excellence, I was thinking something cool that would make farming interesting and make you farm maybe longer, like make it seem more fun. If levels of excellence, if you got like a guaranteed something for X amount of elite kills. So let's say you kill 10 elites, you automatically gonna get a level 63 item or something. And then something crazy, if you kill 100 elites, like in the same session, if you kill like 100 elites or 50 elites or whatever's possible, of like a very high number, like basically every elite like in each act or something, then you get like an automatic legendary. Not a good legendary, a legendary.
I don't know about that. That might be going a bit far.
Well,
Guaranteeing legendaries, I don't think I could get behind that. That makes them far too, maybe not common, but not only that, but one thing Blizzard doesn't usually like to do is rewarding people that have nothing but time on their hands. Because let's face it, that would be what that does. That would make it so that the people who have a whole bunch of time to play, and it would kind of punish the casuals. The casual players, the people that don't have dedicated slots of time. And again, I've said this before, but when I say casual, I don't mean bad. A lot of people equate casual with bad. We're just talking about people that don't have the time to play. That would be a system that kind of penalizes that. I don't think they would do something like that. Now, that's a decent idea. We'd obviously have to have a cap of some kind, kind of like Nephilim Valor having the 5 cap. But I'm not sure, because the big thing is, keep in mind that they just changed the magic find drop rate. When they talked about increasing the health of normal monsters, they also said they're going to increase by a factor of 4, and this is 4 times. They confirmed this in a later post on their forums, that they do mean 4 times. More magical items will drop from regular enemies. This is an interesting change to me. I'm not sure if I like it or not, although considering the sheer rarity of legendary items and by association set items, I might like it. Because that was the thing in Diablo 2. I found a lot of set items, even if they weren't good set items, and even if they weren't set items that I wanted. Over the course of time, I found a few of them. I have not found a single set item in this. They made set items so rare, they made them legendary items. So I guess I kind of would like to see some kind of increase to those kind of drops, but I don't want to see them become too common, you know what I mean?
They're just going to get rid of whites completely. They're just going to get rid of whites completely. Nothing but blue.
I doubt they'll do that, but...
They said they wanted to make every item drop good. It's a quote. They want to make every item drop good. That's how you do it.
Nah.
No more whites. Scrap it. Past a certain level. Once you hit level 60, white stop dropping.
Oh, that would just... You think there's a saturation of items out there now? My goodness. Actually, I do wonder what this will do to auction house prices, because if they're going to increase drops by a factor of 4, you know what? Supply is going to go up, demand might drop, and then from that we can assume that prices might go down.
Well, it all depends, because like if they're making these 61 and 62s as powerful as the high roll 63s, then you might get more, like, because finding really good rolled weapons is kind of hard and very expensive. I'm interested to see if that's going to bring that price down. If you're going to have 61 and 62s matching them power, so it's going to bring the price down of the higher weapons.
Maybe over time.
If they make the magical items more common, and then they increase that, so you're going to find more 61, 62s, and then if the power level is the same, it seems like there's going to be more outlay.
I'm injured.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to do to the economy. I mean, let's face it, the economy is not that great to begin with, especially if you look at the real money auction house nowadays. I know some people have been, there's like a report on Diablo fans of someone making $10,000 from the auction house. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't seen it, but then again, still struggle with Act 3 on my barb, so I don't get a lot of the really good items. But yeah, a lot of the stuff I end up trying to selling, I see going only for like $1.25 or. And let's look at commodities. Commodities are horrible. 25 cents a commodity. For the most case, I mean, gold does not sell for pretty much other than the lowest you can set it for, and that's 25 cents for 100,000. There's really no one buying it for any higher than that. So yeah, the economy is kind of in a weird place, as it were.
Yes, I was worried about losing money on Diablo because I've made money, but I was worried about losing it because I didn't play it as much. So I sold 15 million very recently on the Real Money Auction House. And I think I got 26 or 27 cents per 100,000.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate. So yeah. So I've kind of manipulated? That is an awesome word. I'm making that a new word now. I've kind of monopolized this. So I mean, like, so what? Let's go to you guys. I mean, what kind of things are you most looking forward to this? I mean, what maybe what changes are you hoping for maybe when it comes to this?
I want to see after reading everything, the main two things I care about are what are they going to do with legendaries and the skill changes that affect me immediately. I have all classes and most of them pretty high up, but the Witch Doctor is what I care about. That's what I have fun. That's my favorite class to play. So I really want to see what they do with the other skills, because there really is a lot of skills. Because I remember before I stopped playing a couple weeks ago that I was trying to change builds and do stuff, and just none of it felt good at all. And so really, if they, buff some of these abilities or change these abilities where they're more useful or seems like I want to use them, then that's really going to make me want to play my Witch Doctor a lot more. And then also, if there's a lot of interesting legendaries, it's going to make me want to farm and play the game more to try to find these legendaries.
You know, I'm kind of glad you mentioned that because honestly, it sounds like you're playing a little more like I do now in that regards. Like, I love to try out new builds. I love to try out abilities and try them in unique combinations to see if those combinations will work in some way. And sometimes, combinations that you thought would never work do, just because if you play it in a certain way. And so I love testing out abilities. And you know what? This patch, quite honestly, is going to give me a huge boost in replayability for this game. Because if they change a whole bunch of these skills to something more interesting or viable, I'm going to want to try them out. I'm going to want to try and make even more unique builds. I mean, as it is right now, I play quite a few different builds. My Barbarian, I've gone through probably 5 or 6 different builds when I was farming Inferno. And this will make it so there's even more for me to try out, more to test, see what's viable, see what's not. And that is going to be a huge replayability boost for me. Better yet, the legendaries. Now that they're going to have procs that matter, I'm going to probably try and want and find them. And just to try them, if the procs are interesting enough, as it is right now, I don't care if I ever find most of the legendaries because I just need damage, and most of the legendaries only really do damage. I really don't care if I'm decked out in legendaries. I don't even care if I really find one right now. But if they have interesting procs, something that makes me think, hey, that's neat. What could I do with that? And that's the big thing. What can I do with that?
See, and it'd be cool if they did legendaries where they could help out certain builds you want to do or whatever too. Like, say there's, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like, well, if they did something like the Witch Doctor and like made like a ceremonial knife or a mojo that allowed you to have an extra dog out or 2 extra dogs out. Like, that would be unique. Like, I want to build something around dogs. I found this legendary.
Exactly. There were items kind of like that in Diablo 2 that would, help you with certain things like that. Mostly it would be plus X to your summoning skills or something like that. But if done properly, they could do something like that. Unique that maybe changes your zombie dogs to a different kind of creature or something. I don't know. something weird, you know, just something cool. And the thing is it's a good thing they're changing it now. Think about this. It's a good thing they're changing it now before an expansion. Because if they come up with a whole bunch of really crazy procs now, that means they're going to have to outdo themselves on the next expansion and come up with even cooler stuff. And so just think, the creative minds at Blizzard, what could they come up with for some really interesting procs? You know, I'm looking for stuff that, honestly, when I'm looking at these procs, I'm looking for something that's going to make me think. I want to look at it and say, and automatically say, oh, that's a better weapon, I should use it. I want to look at it and say, ooh, that's interesting. Can I
use this?
Yeah, can I use it? What can I do with it? What? I want to know. Can I rule the world? Can I perhaps tame all the sheep in the land to follow me and then attack my enemies and explode? I don't know.
I just want to ride a zombie bear into battle.
There you go. Convert your zombie bear into a mount. That would be epic. There you go. You've heard it here first. Introducing mounts into Diablo 3. The next patch.
I would be fine with it if they just like tweaked the ability where you like jumped on the back of the leading zombie bear, so it kind of like moved you.
Oh.
When the bear disintegrated, you like just like landed back on your feet.
Be kind of neat, actually, changing it into from just a pure damage to a kind of movement ability too.
And it would be hilarious to see your doctor jump on the back of a zombie bear. Giddy up!
Oh my goodness, that would be odd. Or better yet, give your fetish army the ability to ride your zombie dogs.
Yes.
There you go. Summon fetish army, they jump on your zombie dogs, they do like a ton more damage.
They get spears and they like do long range attacks now.
That'd be cool.
There's no telling what they can do. I'm looking forward to it, and with only 3 weeks to go until their target date, which, you know, they didn't, you have to think about that, they didn't officially say the date, but they said the last week of August. That gives them enough leeway to say, hey, we're going to have to move it if they have to. But we're very close, which means I'm seeing us getting a whole bunch of information over the next, 2-3 weeks. So maybe a blog post a week, probably more than that, because that's not a lot of posts for a 3-week period for all the stuff they have to go through.
I want to know what they're going to do first. I want to know if they're going to do the legendary or characters, because I want to see it all at once. And they better not make me wait. The witch doctor better be the first one. Don't make me wait, Blizzard. Don't make me wait.
I think they will probably go over a lot of the major things first. That's my guess. They probably want to talk about how legendaries are going to change before they talk about class changes and things like that. That would be my guess. I'm honestly assuming that that class changes will be one of the last things they do prior to actually releasing the patch notes.
Don't tell me that. Don't break my heart. Like
We'll see. Well, and honestly, I think when they do the classes, they might release all the class blogs at once. Just make them in separate pages. Either that or they'll do it in stages of 2. They might do one day do 2 classes and then another day do another 2 classes. I think they did something similar to that in World of Warcraft when they were releasing an expansion. They basically released a huge post on, hey, here are the major changes coming to your class, and they did it for 2 classes a day or every other day or so for 1 week. Yeah. I'm gonna say I'm really looking forward to it. I really see mostly good in this. There is obviously the concern that the game might end up getting too easy. I am slightly worried about that, but again, I don't think Diablo has to be the game that super taxes me. When I played Diablo 2, I loved farming and just killing stuff. I can find super hard difficulty in other games or other things, if I really want to find it. I don't think I have to have Diablo do that for me. It's, tricky. Because I obviously don't want it to be too easy, because then there's no point in playing. I think the hard part is they will never satisfy everyone, because the super hardcore players, like the people that clear all the WoW content on the first week or 2, You're never going to fully satisfy them because they are going to beat everything so fast, while normal players are still, you know, a month later wondering how they did it.
Better now.
Same thing goes with Diablo. You got people that have beaten, you know, that quickly beat Inferno, and you've got people that still haven't. Like you and me, I haven't. Of course, I haven't been playing lately. I've been so busy. But yeah, you're not going to please everyone. Never will. I figure they're doing their best if they equally annoy both groups. See, if you're pissing everybody off equally, you're doing something right.
By the way, I figured it out. They're moving the vulnerable minions so they can give it to the rich.
Right. It's a legendary item, right?
It's a legendary set item. It's like 2 or 3.
Right.
It's gonna happen. Where can I go put these ideas to Blizzard? I want my witch doctor riding a zombie big.
Go to the forums. Just put it on there. Although be prepared, you're going to have to wade through a whole bunch of posts about Blizzard's security breach.
Oh yeah, I've seen them on that.
And that's something I kind of want to cover real quick. I know I haven't had a lot of viewers. They might either be watching Sixen or nobody cares to watch Diablo anymore. But hey, this breach, a lot of people have been making all these posts and complaining about Blizzard deleting it or locking them. People need to understand there is no good that can come of making new threads about something when there's already 20 other threads doing the exact same thing, and they've already designated one thread to be the main primary point of contact. And people were complaining that they weren't talking about it. It's like, you know what? They were spending most of their time probably locking down all the other threads that they really couldn't do much else, would be my guess. Now, Blizzard did the right thing in that they notified us quickly, and they pretty much told us exactly what happened and what was lost. What can we expect? You know, do we need to panic? The answer is mostly no. No passwords were taken, only password encryption data, which means they would have to try and find out what the password was to match the encryption. And that's easier said than done in a lot of cases. It's not MD5 that they're using. I forget what they said they were using, I believe. No credit card information that they could tell was taken. I mean, honestly, the one thing that they did notice was that personal questions might have been taken, which that is a major concern, especially that there appears to have been no encryption on that. But in that post, they pretty much said most of what was taken really cannot be used to compromise account. No credit card information was taken. And that's the thing. The moment this happened, people were like, well, I don't want you having my credit card information. I want my money back for a real money purchase I made, because you obviously can't have it. You can't secure it. It's like, well, wait. They didn't lose any of that information. So you're still fine. You just got to be careful. And the truth of the matter is, if you have an authenticator on your account, everything that was taken, even the security question, should not be a big burden to you. And they're going to roll out the ability for people to change their secondary question. I'm honestly glad I got a token when I did. I got hacked in WoW. It was not a fun feeling.
I don't remember what my second question was.
Snook, see, I'm just going to go take your account now.
Wait, if I don't know what it is, how are you going to do it?
I'll figure it out. Social engineering, my friend. Social engineering.
Plus, I have authenticators on my phone.
Yeah, that's a big help when it comes to something like this. So yeah, I think people just need to not really panic, look at what they, everything everybody really wants to know is in that primary post about the breach. There is really a lot of great information there, and it will really help people to understand what actually happened, what was missing, and what they might need to be concerned with. The big fact that credit card information was not taken is a big deal. It is really important on that. And I would say my one complaint about all these posts I saw is people complaining to Blizzard, Why did you not report this sooner? And my response to that would be, you do not want to report something like that right away. There's two problems with that. One, you alert whoever is doing it that you know of their presence. When you find a breach like that, the best way to handle that is to wait. Find out what they did, find out what they got. I mean, this is why they were able to tell us what was taken, is because they analyzed what kind of breach it was, what information they were gathering.
Sometimes I get the impression
How did they get in?
don't really like me.
And that's how they could tell, hey, as far as we could tell, this is all they took.
Amusing.
And yet you keep dragging me
And
into these disgusting
if they were to let,
demon-infested
make an announcement right away, the person that was doing it would be like, oh crap, I need to stop or not go in again. Or, it would pretty much, granted it would have the effect of keeping them from grabbing more information, but it would have the downside of, if Blizzard wanted to find out more about this breach and how to fix it,
That was just
they would have just notified the best person that they could track down in order to gain more information. With things like this, it's kind of like banning the bots. They don't ban every individual bot because they have to watch out for what accounts those bots interact with in order to get the accounts of the primary people who are dealing with all this hacking and things like that. Just banning individual bots is a band-aid. You kind of have to try and solve the systemic problem. So, obviously you don't want to tip your hand too early in a situation like this. You want to be able to find out what's going on. And then there's the second problem. If Blizzard would have announced it the moment they found out about it, what would they tell everybody? Seriously, what could they tell you? Oh, there's a breach. Okay, what do they've got? We don't know yet. Should we be
Watch the
concerned?
forums
We don't.
explode.
Yeah, exactly. If they would have announced it the moment it happened, they would have no information. And that's, honestly, that's worse than waiting. Because then, the moment you tell people, we have this problem, and you can't tell them exactly what that problem is, or what the details of that problem is, it's going to incite such a panic. I mean, look at how people are panicking now, even with all the information that they've been given. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of fear and or bashing that they're getting when they've done everything right at this point, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah, the human race is a little panicky.
I mean, obviously, if you guys have different opinions, let me know. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, do you think that they should have announced that sooner, or does that make sense?
It's better to have what information you can before you let the general public know. I mean, or else you just get mass riots and no information.
Exactly. That's the way I feel about it. I mean, it's releasing too little information too soon leads people to guess, and allowing people to use their imaginations on something with little information is bad. Very, very bad. The general populace tends to exaggerate issues too far when they're left to their own devices and imaginings.
There he is.
What do you say, Snook? You've been quiet.
I think he's AFK at the moment.
Well, that's because he's a jerk. And he's naked, and a witch doctor. No, wait, sorry, I like witch doctor. That's the one thing good. Yeah. I have been enjoying my witch doctor. I'm actually looking forward to getting back to the witch doctor once I get all the Path of Exile stuff up.
I'm looking forward to the class changes. That's going to be fun. I want to do some more building.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Definitely looking forward to it. So, yeah, that's great. And if I get the ability, I'm going to probably take this since I think it was a decent discussion, even though I did most of the talking. Let's try and get it on YouTube, so people can see it and talk about it, because we didn't get a lot of chatters actually watching, and not really a lot of questions either in the stream. So, yeah, I think it'll be a good topic to put up, because I actually do want to go over the changes. I will be very happy to return to my Witch Doctor and return to Diablo 3 once the patch comes out, and talking about it. Gives me more video content, you know what I mean?
And riding zombie bears into battle.
Right, absolutely, thank you. You're back. Jerk. Yeah. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to cut off the stream, I think, so that it creates a nice video segment. And like I said, I'll see if about transferring it, because I believe Twitch will allow me to do that. So let me do that now. Just
I believe they will, because I've seen YouTube videos of people putting like highlight reels from streams on YouTube. So.
right. All right. So let me go ahead now to there and.